This is KTN.
The world is swiftly evolving to a global village, and here at KTN, we're moving with the times. Introducing the Diaspora Voice, KTN's premier international talk show.
If you mess up with the register, the diaspora, you mess up with the whole election.
Join us as we tackle issues affecting those in and out of Kenya.
While a lot of illegal immigrants have been able to renew their driver's licenses through various means in the past, they absolutely will not be able to do that. Survival for them in the US is almost going to be impossible.
That the word progressive in Article 82 by itself cannot be used as a weapon to deny Kenyans living abroad the right to vote.
What makes this small Scandinavian country the happiest in the world? Could this be the reason why so many Kenyans continue to flock into this small, cold Scandinavian country?
Join us every Friday on www.ktnkenya.tv, 8 p.m. GMT+3.
For many sports people, winning a medal for their country is the ultimate prize, and the joy and the pride that comes with it. But like forgotten heroes, once they lose, they are forgotten, never in history books, as was the case with Conjestina Achieng. In 1976, John Odhiambo was a professional Kenyan boxer. But after the botched 1976 Vancouver Olympics, he and the other Olympians felt unwanted in their own home country. Driven by rage and anger, they left Kenya for Europe. John has been living in Copenhagen, Denmark for the last 30 years. Here's a story of a forgotten hero. You were a professional boxer in your life. Do you remember what got you started into boxing?
Boxing started back in Uganda. I remember we were in a school at the time, and I was around 14. And as we are from the school, there was a boy, and I didn't know nothing about boxing at the time. And then this boy kind of kicked me up, he beat me up, and then I was told, oh, do you know that that fellow is a boxer? Because I couldn't understand. Every time I come home, he slapped me this one, he slapped me on the other end, and he was so quick on his feet. And then I found out that he was a boxer. Then from then on, I decided that I should find out this boxing. What is the boxing? Then I went to the boxing club. Then I started, and that was in 1971, 72. And time, it was very short time. From then on, I remember in 1974, already I came to the junior championship. And things went very quick. And as I told you that I was in Olympic game in 1976, there were very good boxers in Kenya at the time, which I remember even by name, some of them, back in those days.
Who can you remember from that
period? Mike Irungu was one of them, he's a flyweight, and then his brother Mushoki was a very good boxer, and Sadrak Odhiambo was also very good boxers.
Most of the young people in my generation, we only remember Robert Wangila just because he was among the
good ones. The boxing, there is a period that somebody is there as a boxer. And those periods, and the period also ran very quickly, like Ashira, who is here now, was a very good boxer. He was a world champion, and was very known in America than even in Kenya. But he was in Mombasa. Everybody, if you mention Ashira, everybody know him. But times ran very quick. With the boxing, of course, just like a sport, after 4 or 5 years, if you are not around, things run very quick, and somebody come in.
Just this year, there's been a big discussion about how the Kenyan government treats its athletes, especially boxers. With a case of just a lady called Conjestina Achieng, who has been, representing Kenya in many international fights. And once she stopped, the government doesn't take care of her at all, and she lives a very poor life. How was it those years?
Something of many African countries that sometimes those known fighters, they be forgotten for a very short period of time is because there's nothing concrete arranged that are ready there to prepare for those who retire. What I've noticed among the Danes that were here, who are good boxers, who had been a professional boxers, because here the security, there is a help from the state, from the governments that are given. If you are retired, let's say that a boxer got sick and he broke his arm, he get money for his sickness until he recover from the sickness. And those who retired, mostly, of course, they have made some money to the retirement money benefit, and their benefit which the state give, which of course automatically you know that if you retired, you get a benefit of your pensions. But those things are not in back home, that's the problem.
Does that make African sportsmen who come here a bit sad that they are not well taken care of, despite the fact that they have contributed so much to the success of their countries in sports?
Of course, many got sad, but the sadness, it depends on, let's take an example for us who are here. When we left our sport, of course you have to pay for the pension, you have to work and pay your way out for your future, because nobody's going to give you any help if you are. But the health feature in the government are connected with us now that we can get help. When you need help, you can go to the doctor, you can get those treatment, but you can also get money if you don't have a job. But if you're in Africa, where are you going to get that? You can't get that. You can't get any help from anywhere else apart from what you have saved it to yourself. So it's sad for that part that when you are up and you are presenting the country, everybody look at you as somebody great. But after you have dropped down, then of course you miss nobody.
There's been a trend, you know, doctors moving away from Kenya, professors moving away from Kenya, nurses moving away to Canada, and now athletes moving away from Kenya. Do you think the country is losing a lot of talent because of maybe the treatment that they're not getting down there?
Because there's a lot of talent that they are lost. Because to make a team of boxers, to be a good boxer that represent the country, is not a year work. It's a number of years. It's the same with other sports. Just like losing a nurse, it's not a year or a month training that the nurse have. It's years. Prepare to become a nurse, to be ready to be a nurse, and then you leave the country. Of course, there is a big gap, there's a big hole that you leave behind.
So thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, and
thank you very much.
All the best.
Karibu sana for another episode of Diaspora Voice, KTN's premier international talk show. Every week we come to you with issues affecting those living both in Kenya and abroad. Today we look at elections both in Kenya and America. I am your host, Sophia Wanuna. Globally, all eyes are on the United States as the election date draws near. Local and international media are flooded with reports of opinion polls, voter responses and utterances made by President Barack Obama and his Republican counterpart, Mitt Romney. In the 2008 elections, Obama received overwhelming support from Kenyans. Here is a brief piece on jubilation in Kenya over the Obama victory 4 years ago.
The euphoria that has gripped Kenya and the world at large over Barack Obama's candidacy has been phenomenal. The wave of support, sheer love and admiration for the man has simply been overwhelming. No one could have imagined that a relatively young politician from Illinois could tilt the political landscape of America the way he has done.
I realize that I am not the likeliest candidate for this office. I don't fit the typical pedigree, and I haven't spent my career in the halls of Washington.
In Kenya, the love for Obama largely stems from the fact that he is virtually a son of the land. Alego Kogelo village, the home of Obama's father, has become the epicenter of the sentimental attachment the country has with Obama.
4 years ago, I stood before you and told you my story of the brief union between a young man from Kenya and a young woman from Kansas who weren't well off or well known,
Many a Kenyan hence believes that Kenya must occupy a special place in the heart of this charismatic leader. In true African tradition, no son of the land can be expected or even allowed to forget where he came from. But the love for Obama transcends national or continental boundaries. Many other African nations have multitudes whose faces light up at the very mention of Obama's name.
This is the moment.
The world watched in awe as over 200,000 Germans flocked to Berlin to attend his rally. It was a near stampede. Among his greatest admirers are people who are just happy that a man of color has dared shoot for the stars, literally. No one could have imagined that he could rise this high.
Thank you so much.
And so when the "Yes We Can" began to resonate from the Democratic campaign podiums of America, it ricocheted off the boundaries of the USA and echoed all across the globe. It is believed that Obama's daring has inspired all the underprivileged and the discriminated against, infecting the world with the belief that anyone at all can make it if we try hard enough.
It's a promise that says each of us has the freedom to make of our own lives what we will, but that we also have obligations to treat each other with dignity and respect.
But the belief that he will help Africa and the third world more than John McCain has also been dismissed as a fallacy. The Brookings Institution, a public policy organization in Washington, says the Republican administration under George Bush has helped Africa more than any Democratic administration ever did. And John McCain has made a promise to reduce agricultural subsidies in the US to give Africa fair trade opportunities, while Obama only promises to increase aid to Africa. This is why they say the euphoria of Obama could be misplaced.
I have a dream.
Be that as it may, the rise of Obama is a historical phenomenon that is impossible to dismiss. Just under 40 years ago, the lot of the colored people was under the yoke of untold misery and discrimination. When the mother of modern civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, defied a bus driver and refused to give up her seat for a white man in Alabama in 1955, she sparked off a history of fierce civil rights protests that roped in great black activists like Malcolm X, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
It is that promise that 45 years ago today brought Americans from every corner of this land to stand together on a mall in Washington before Lincoln's memorial and hear a young preacher from Georgia speak of his dream.
Jesse Jackson came close in 1984 and 1988 when he tried for the Democratic presidential ticket, but he never rose this high. Obama, for many people, has been the beginning of the coming to birth of that dream, that promise. With Barack Obama, the history of the United States of America has been rewritten, and America will never be the same again. Noah Otieno, KTN.
Due to his Kenyan parentage, many Kenyan citizens are still rooting for him to take the presidency this time round. Many Kenyans living in the U.S. have actively taken part in his campaigns. We are now joined by Nathan Wagusi, a Kenyan student involved in the Obama campaign. Nathan, tell us about your participation in the U.S. presidential campaigns.
So I got involved in the Obama campaign as a volunteer in 2008 and as an organizer in the field in 2011. And what I've learned about this system is that there's not much difference in terms of the amount of contention there are on issues, the differences people have in ethnicity, or that there are electoral disputes at the end of the election. It's the methods by which they use to resolve those disputes and those differences. Now, as a people, we should learn how to accept the outcomes of our elections, and if there are any problems, not to use violence or intimidation as a means of resolving our disputes, but to use peaceful means. Under the new constitution, we have democratic tools at our disposal, and we should use them. Here's the thing about elections. They're not just a chance for us to elect our leaders, but a chance for us to decide who we are as a people and to choose a destiny for our country.
Thank you for your insight. While some like Nathan are actively taking part in the presidential campaigns, those here at home are sending him good wishes and prayers. We'll now take a short break, but when we come back, Chris Wamalwa will join us from America with news on the diaspora's take on Kenya's next general election.
Every Sunday from 9 a.m. Radio meets TV. The DJ plays you the best of gospel music. Inspirational and life-changing stories.
Then you could only see me on trouser, 3/4, 1/4, 4/4, all kinds of trousers.
Niliingia kwa jeneza haraka, nikaingia ndani na nikakufa nikakauka.
Kama kuna kitu kizuri nilipata kwa high school, nilimpata Yesu.
Every Sunday at 9 a.m. on Tukuza. It's a fresh start indeed.
It's all about big laughter.
They say the road to heaven is short and narrow. Now, if you are tall and fat, where will you pass?
It's all about the best comedians.
I was looking at you because you are looking at me.
It's all about the best joke.
Kuna reason why Olympics haitai happen Kenya. Mtu anakimbia huku kando mahoka. Brother, hakuna haja ukimbia na una sufuria kwa nyumba.
It's the biggest, craziest comedy show on TV, and it's coming to KTN.
Swag nayo.
Diaspora participation in the 2013 election has been both a point of elation and a bone of contention to parties involved. Many have seen this move a bold step forward, while those in the diaspora have said that the IEBC should do more to cater for them. With presidential aspirants conducting campaigns abroad, it has become increasingly evident that should the diaspora vote, their voice will count in the March 4th election. InfoTrack conducted the first ever diaspora opinion poll gauging how Kenyans living abroad are likely to vote. Chris Wamalwa now joins us from the United States with more.
I've always been keen to get some insights on what you as people in the diaspora think about certain issues or key issues that pertain to your country. And so, having been here in August and visited the embassy, we discussed the possibility of conducting a diaspora poll, the first one, with America, where most of the diaspora live. And because there was some existing framework, we said, why not? And for that reason, from the 23rd of September to 1st of October, many of you got invites asking you and reminders asking you to actually participate in a poll. Of course, it was the diaspora that was covered in terms of sample, and you will see that the responses came from all over. The states with the highest population obviously got more responses than the states that had low populations. We used computer-assisted web interviews through a program called SurveyMonkey, and then we analyze the data using SPSS. And I'm telling you all these things because it's a protocol. I must explain how the survey was done. The sample that was actually covered in the study was 1,104, which pretty much represents a decent margin of error. I don't have to explain that too much for you guys, especially in an election year in the US, because I think you hear it all the time. But what it does say is that those numbers were decent enough in terms of margin of error. What we have also said is there were limitations because, quite frankly, we've had many figures thrown around in terms of population of Kenyans in the diaspora. 28,000 registered, 1 million believed to be here. Some people say between 200,000 and 500,000. What we could use was the existing database that is, there with the Kenyan embassy of those people who have registered as Kenyans in the diaspora. So that is what guided us. But I think it gives us a good indication of where the numbers are, right? In terms of the split of the sample, if you don't see your state there with a percentage, because you'll see some percentages there, 2%, etc., it only means that we did talk to people from the state you hail from or live right now. It was just that it was under 1%. And I think if you look at it, you will see that perhaps it's very similar to the kind of population splits that you have of Kenyans here. Kenyans love Texas. This is what I learned. Those 14% of our population, of our sample, was from Texas. Kenyans certainly love, and I'll just move it so you can see it clearly, California, 10%. There are very many Kenyans as well in Maryland and Massachusetts. There are very many Kenyans in Georgia, where my sister Tina lives. There are Kenyans in Minnesota, 5%, New Jersey, Washington, up in the north, 4%, DC and the rest have 1%, as you can see up there. And then Alabama, Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, New York, Ohio, Virginia, 2% of the sample. So I think it's somewhat, I see people nodding, so I think it somewhat makes sense in terms of the sampling, or in terms of the population split of Kenyans in the diaspora. Now, one of the first things we asked you in that poll is, what do you think about voting? Linus said, this perhaps may be the first time that you will get an opportunity to vote. So we obviously asked what your perceptions were in terms of diaspora voting. And the question was, the proposed regulations for diaspora voting states that Kenyans in the diaspora will vote in the Kenyan consulates and embassies during the March 2013 election. Do you approve? Majority said yes, so long as it's 50. My statistics teach a 50 plus is majority. So 57% said yes, but those 38% who actually said no, they don't approve. And there was 5% who didn't know. Most of those guys who didn't know are within the age group 18 to 22. They're young people. So to us, it suggested that there is need to have civic education so that everybody understands what the tenets of this constitution are and what the rights of you as people living in the diaspora will be in terms of voting, etc., etc. Are you enthusiastic, in any case, about diaspora voting? It is your destiny, you get to choose, and for that reason, 71% said very enthusiastic. Some were somewhat enthusiastic, that's about 22%, sorry. And 7% said, no, we're not enthusiastic at all. Obviously, they have their reasons, and it would be good to unearth those with time. I'm sure IEBC is noting. I see James is noting it down, which is good. So it would be good to find out, because everybody should be enthusiastic. I think it's one of those things that during the Constitution, we said we wanted to do, vote. Having said all that, will you actually vote as a Kenyan in the diaspora? Enthusiastic or not? Will you go out and vote? Almost everyone said yes. The ones who don't know, who constitute the 7%, again are the young guys. And we find that even in Kenya. These are the guys who need to be convinced. What will voting change for them? Will it mean that they get good leaders who promise and deliver on their promises of employment, gainful employment, good infrastructure, corruption-free society? I guess as we grow older, we're kinder to leaders. The young ones are not. I think this is an important issue to address on how and where the US diaspora will vote. So what we asked is, if the voting was conducted in your state, would you vote? The barriers to voting are almost negligible then, so of course you will vote. Almost everybody would vote. However, if it is as been stipulated, and I think this is why you saw the 22% saying somewhat, because we did some correlation, somewhat excited, I am happy about this, regulation, I think is, where the consulates will I be able to travel? Yeah, what are the logistics? I'm just a Kenyan working in the diaspora. I may not afford that flight. Maybe we're a family of 4 or 5 adults, 18 plus, who need to vote. I think these are some of the logistical issues that we will need to address. One, you need to do that in terms of, and we got this in terms of the softer issues that were mentioned. We got people saying, what will happen in terms of registration? Will I be registered in my state, or will I have to come to a central location? And how do those logistics work? So of course, then you see that if diaspora voting is conducted in a state other than yours, then only 24% seem very excited and enthusiastic and say yes. The undecided guys are 32%, and no goes up to 44%. I think they're sending a clear message that you must make it simple enough for us to vote, even though we're in the diaspora, where there are 20 plus airlines and all sorts of ways to travel to where we need to go. I'm not too sure what the law says, James, but are they going to vote for president or for all elective positions? Certainly, the diaspora wants to vote for everybody. Absolutely, voting for the president is a must, so everybody wants that. They want to vote for the CEO of the county, as was mentioned by 80%. They certainly want to vote for the senator. They want to vote for their MPs, mentioned by 77%, but they also want to be, a deciding factor on who their women's rep will be. Linus and I went together last night. So I was telling him, people would think we were together last night because he talked so much about national pride. What does that mean? It means that we're proud of our country, or proud of ourselves as being from that country. It means being proud and happy of being a citizen of Kenya. What one thing, we asked you in the diaspora, what one thing makes you proud of being Kenyan? That makes you proud. Makes you very proud. And you should be. Improving of the economy, youth unemployment, Linus, you mentioned it, it's right there. It has to be fixed. If you have that high unemployment rate, as Linus had actually mentioned and illustrated to us, you will have trouble. It's inevitable. It's a ticking time bomb. You don't want tribalism. You don't care that you come from Central, Nyanza, Western, God knows where. We're Kenyans first. That's why we're all sitting here anyway. You want infrastructure, you want IDP resettlement, you want improved trade and investment, you want food security, and you want land issues sorted out. These are the priorities that you want the two principles to work on. And we've talked about insecurity. We back home are worried about insecurity just like you are. And I put those numbers there because for some reason, insecurity never used to show in our polls as a very critical issue. But February, 17%, March, 16%, May, 10%, June, 13%, diaspora, number one issue. We need to sort out security. Certainly you need to make me feel that things will be good come 2013 June or whenever it is after the runoff, if we have one. But we're not, ignorant about corruption, or we've not just turned a blind eye. We want it sorted out as well. We want good governance. We want poor leadership dealt with. But we also want good education, civic education for us, so that we understand the Constitution. We understand what this governor is going to do for us in our countries, because people don't know. I've sat with people in focus groups, they have no idea what the governor is going to do different from the senator. I'm almost certain many people here don't know. Right? And we need to be taught. We don't want tribalism, we want boundaries, land issues sorted out, children and gender issues sorted out as well. So we also covered devolution and voter education in your poll. Are you going to toa chapa? Are you going to chota for your candidate? The two jobs that you work. Because people think, it's all rosy here. They don't know that people in the diaspora work bloody hard. But are you going to give it to these guys? Do you plan to financially contribute? Yeah, a quarter of you will give chapa. That's why there were so many people on my flight, governor candidates who are coming here. They were starting with New York, Texas, all the places where there are numbers. Because they know that if they tell you the right things, they will get some dollars. But please ask them the right questions before you give them the money. Half of you said no way, we're not giving money. And 26% may be convinced when the guy, and he's a politician, so he's going to convince you. Huh? But do you guys also have interest in going back home? Lina says stay here, but we also need some of the good guys going back home and ensuring that our elective positions are, filled with the right caliber of people. So do you plan to go back? It's there. You're leaving it to us. So we'll try and do the best we can as Kenyans back home. How ready are we for devolution? We asked you. You think we're only somewhat ready. You don't think we're fully ready. Maybe because we don't understand fully what devolution holds for us. Do you feel that there's been adequate voter education for the diaspora? 87% of you said no. Not enough. So that needs to be dealt with. So, do you have confidence in Mr. Oswago and his team? Do you have confidence in the consulate and embassy offices to administer the diaspora elections? In both cases, you're somewhat confident. You need some reinforcement so that the confidence is boosted. I think that needs to be worked on. So, with the embassy, it's 56% confidence. With the IEBC, it's 68, somewhat confident. Those who are extremely confident, 14% and 18% respectively. So that you just need that boost to feel that things will be fine. Everything will be in place, and the elections will be free, fair, peaceful, transparent. I get into trouble sharing this stuff. So should I? Are you sure? You wouldn't say that Jaluo girl? Because I hate it when you do. Umetoboa. Right. And somebody's telling me, so let me, so it's not tribe that is going to determine your presidential candidate of choice. You, the diaspora, you're detribalized. You're not like us back home. Because you have said it's the candidate's track record. This is what you said. You said that he has to have, or she has to have, a good manifesto and a convincing campaign message, 31%. This person has to be intelligent and well-schooled. Not from your tribe. Not from your tribe. Not necessarily. Candidate has to be wealthy. People say that because if you're wealthy, then you won't, Exactly. But I also got this from CSA, Strategic PR. They did this just recently. They released this on Monday. So, likelihood of voting for a candidate from another tribe. For president, back home, Kenyans 59% said likelihood is high. So it's not very different. That's what they also said. We're detribalized. For governor, for senator, for member of parliament, slightly less because the guy hails from your place anyway. So he probably will come from your village or something. Yeah? If you don't know that this is what it means to be president, maybe perhaps because you're so overwhelmed with what it means to be president for Obama, then I will just remind you. That's what our Constitution says. To be president, he will have to garner an absolute majority of votes amongst all contestants nationwide. He has to win at least 25% of the vote in a majority of Kenya's 47 counties, about 24 counties. Yeah? We're clear? That's what they have to do. So we asked you the question, if elections were held today, bust your bubble, no candidate would win in the first round if it was just diasporas deciding. There would be no winner first round. There would be a runoff. And some candidates seem to be more popular here than they are back home, right? So, if elections were held today here in the diaspora, Raila would, get 32%. Uhuru Kenyatta would get 10.7% of the vote. But interestingly, we also have Peter Kenneth showing up very strongly. So he would get 10.6% as well of the vote. You guys are nodding. You like this guy, I see. CDF, I presume. Martha Karua, 8.7%. Musalia Mudavadi, 4.5%. And then there were all the others who also got some of your, vote. William Ruto at 1.8%, Kalonzo Musyoka 2.2%, Kiapi 1.6%, Raphael Tuju 1.6%, Charity Ngilu 1.4%, Mutava Musimi 1.4%, you had Eugene Wamalwa at 0.3%, Cyrus Jirongo 0.2%, but you also would vote for Maina Jenga 0.1%. And the most interesting thing is that many of you still don't know. You're honest enough to say you don't know. 22% said, we don't know yet. Right? How does that compare with back home? It's not very different. Even back home, we don't have a clear winner. It still suggests that there will be a runoff, possibility of a runoff high. So you can see those numbers as they pan out back home. Of course, Uhuru Kenyatta more popular in those numbers. Raila at 36, Uhuru at 29, Kalonzo Musyoka is more popular back home as is William Ruto, and then Musalia is there. And you see that Peter Kenneth and Martha Karua are more popular with the Kenyan diaspora.
Today it's my privilege to host Mr. John Maina. John Maina is the Diaspora Advisor in the Office of the Prime Minister in Kenya. John Maina spent a lot of years in the diaspora. He just went to Kenya about a few years ago. So today we are going to be talking about a whole range of issues, back and forth on life in Kenya and life in the diaspora. John, welcome to a show. It's a privilege to have you on this show because so many people have really requested me to get hold of you. Yeah. One of the questions that many Kenyans have asked is, do you represent the diaspora in the Prime Minister's office, or do you represent the Prime Minister and by extension, therefore, the Orange Democratic Party? Make some clarifications on that.
Let me thank you for asking this question, and I hope I'll clarify this confusion, because I call it confusion because those are two different entities. The Prime Minister is the coalition partner in the government, and his party is Orange Democratic Party. So those are completely two different entities. I am the diaspora advisor in the Prime Minister's office, not in the Orange Democratic Party. So we have to separate those two. One is a party, one is a government office. I'm in the government office. And just to clarify, the party has nothing to do with the office. So in other words, when I'm advising the Prime Minister on issues that pertain to the diaspora, party has nothing to do with it. I represent all party affiliations. In other words, I represent members of the diaspora regardless of party affiliations, regardless of their background. Because, as I said again, this is a government office that serves all Kenyans in the diaspora, not Kenyans from one political affiliation or another.
Thank you for that clarification. Like I told you, it's something that has come up several times. Just picking up on that same thing. So what are your roles in that office? What's the role of the diaspora advisor in the office of the Prime Minister?
Okay, Mr. Omalo, this is how the Prime Minister's office operates. First of all, let me just clarify the role of the Prime Minister in government. The Prime Minister is the head of government per se. He is in charge of all the ministries in the government. So he supervises all the ministries, whether it's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Sports and Social Services. He is in charge of all the ministries. So and also being the head of government per se, he has advisors from all these ministries in his office. He has advisors on economic matters. He has advisors on gender issues. He has advisors on disabled people, citizens. He has advisors on all matters that pertain to government. So now, since diaspora is also a major player in the country or in the government, so he thought it wise also to have an advisor on diaspora matters. Because first of all, as we know, diaspora is a very significant infusion into the government, because remember, the diaspora remits $2.8 billion into our Kenyan economy every year. And also the diaspora has grown to almost 3.1 million. in population. And the diaspora remits almost 10% of our GDP in our country. And many other things besides sharing, the diaspora sharing intellectual capacity to the government. So that is an entity you can't ignore. Diaspora is a very important concept in our government that you cannot afford to ignore it. And that's why the Prime Minister decided he needs an advisor for diaspora matters. Okay, and I hope that answers your question. Just the way he has advisors on many other important issues in government.
Sitting in that office in Nairobi, you receive so many Kenyans who visit Kenya, coming to your office to pay courtesy calls. And they raise issues. I'm told, and I experienced that when I was there. You seem to be the focal point for most of this, the diaspora concerns. What are the issues that you hear many Kenyans are raising when they come to your office?
In the last couple of months, I should say, the biggest issues and concern I hear from the diaspora who are visiting the Prime Minister's office is how are they going to be registered and be able to vote in the forthcoming elections. That is a very important issue to them right now. They want to know, since the Constitution guarantees them the right to vote, they want to know, has the government laid down the structure for that to happen? For them to be able to, number one, get identity cards and renew their passports if they need to do that to be able to register. Number two, for them to be able to register. And number three, for them to be able to participate in the voting process on election day. So those are the main concerns right now. And I'm sure there are many other concerns that they like raising up, but this is a priority.
For quite a long time, you've been the only link between the diaspora, or let's say the government, and the IEBC, and whatever is going on during the initial stages. How has been your working relationship with the Electoral Commission?
Well, interesting question. I wouldn't say it's been very smooth, because as you know, this is my baby per se, dual citizenship and voting rights. I'm the one who went to Bomas of Kenya in 2004 to propose and testify on that legislation of dual citizenship and voting rights on behalf of Kenyan community abroad when I was still here in the US. So I believe the proposal I put forth was very, very, very inclusive in terms of the whole structure and process and the logistics of Kenyans becoming dual citizen and being able to vote in the next election. So, and I'm not criticizing IEBC or other stakeholders, but I will say that I don't think they've done a lot of consulting, which is very important. And I don't mean they should come to me for consultation, but they can also consult other members of the diaspora and hear their views and see if their views are parallel to the so-called diaspora policy draft that was put together by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So with me, I'm still in communication with IEBC and other stakeholders. I have frequent meetings with the chairman and the CEO of IEBC, and also we communicate via mail as well. And I can tell you that it's been quite challenging because to get some of those ideas from the diaspora or my own ideas in the proposal adapted by these stakeholders in the election board. I can tell you that in my proposal in 2004, when I went to Bomas of Kenya, I was proposing for e-voting because I thought e-voting was the most logical way to get all the diaspora community participate in registration and voting. And it was the most inexpensive way and transparent. You can't rig it. You can't rig e-voting because of the nature of the openness of the process. In other words, when you vote, all that information goes to a database whereby you can retrieve it in case there's any dispute in the elections.
As we speak, John, right now, it seems like the IEBC has made up their mind, because voter registration is supposed to start in the next, actually 3 to 4 days. And to the best of your knowledge, how many kids are we going to have in the US, for instance? Let's just talk about the US right now, because the US has been the most contentious place. What's the latest as we speak right now?
Actually, in terms of distribution of the kids, I'm not very sure about the number, because they haven't even, I understand they haven't even been acquired yet or arrived into the IEBC offices. And that is what is actually making most Kenyans in the diaspora be concerned in terms of the timeline of the election, their participation in the election. If today is October, towards the end of October, and the diasporans haven't been registered, and the ones who don't have IDs haven't been issued with IDs, identity cards. The ones who have their passport expired, they haven't been renewed. And yet, in another few months, they will be able to cast their votes. And that is March 4th of next year. So I don't know if that timeline will allow all this process to take place, which to me, I would think this process should have taken place a long time back in terms of mapping the entire diaspora and determining the methodology of registering and voting. That should have been done like yesterday. So far, that process hasn't taken place, and that is the concern of most Kenyans in the diaspora that I come across, and my concern as well, because I've been in this process from day one.
Some people have spoken to are arguing that voting rights, especially these elections, it seems to be a lost cause. People now think we need to focus on the bigger picture and the main problem, which is, all these issues, all these flaws are inherent in the clause that created the dual citizenship. The dual citizenship clause.
Correct.
Dual citizenship, like you said, is your baby. What are the flaws within the dual citizenship clause that Kenyans in the diaspora need to be to focus their attention on in terms of the areas that they need to correct before it becomes law? Because after these elections, it will be a totally new ballgame.
No, I would think, first of all, what they need to do, Kenyans in the diaspora especially, they need to read and peruse through that document, the new constitution, especially on the citizenship chapter, where it clearly defines their role and their participation even in the election. So the diaspora needs to familiarize themselves with that constitution so that if it's violated, they can share their grievances with the stakeholders.
Let me reframe my question.
Correct.
Right now, there are many Kenyans who are hesitant to pick up dual citizenship because they say if you get the dual citizenship and you go back home, there are offices that you're not even allowed to run office. Like you can't run for these political offices or any major office in Kenya. So people are wondering, then what does it serve? If I'm not able to go back home and be a senior person in government, you get the sense.
Correct.
So those are the issues that people are saying are grappling with right now. Is that true, or that is just no?
What I can tell you is that there's some areas in terms of that chapter on citizenship in the Constitution that are kind of a little bit murky or leans towards the gray area, and it needs, as you say, it needs clarification. And what is happening right now is that IEBC has prepared the document and pushed it over to Parliament, so that those little nitty-gritty things can be ironed out. At the moment, Parliament is kind of going through that document to see if anything needs to be clarified or changed. So right now I can't tell you for sure what is going to happen, but the document is being reviewed in Parliament.
John, as we speak right now, some of the most hated people in the world are politicians, not only just in America, but more specifically in Kenya.
Correct.
Can the diaspora trust Parliament to have the interests at heart when it comes to such an important document? Remember, I had an interview recently with the Ombudsman, and he said quite clearly that you can never trust those folks. I mean, are we taking too much chances on that?
First of all, I'm not defending them, but let me say we can't generalize and put all of them in one basket. All politicians are not rotten per se. But I can say that some of those politicians, their decisions have made people kind of have some little mistrust on them. Some of the decisions they made in Parliament, especially this issue of pay rise.
In the coming elections, you know, thank God the diaspora are going to vote. But no, there's a feeling that no, that is not adequate enough. Many people want some concrete involvement by the diaspora in the new dispensation.
Correct.
People are suggesting that because no, the constitution is silent in terms of diaspora representation.
Correct.
People want parties to nominate people in the diaspora to represent the diaspora issues in government. Is that something that you'd like to support? And if you would, is this something that you think the Orange movement, the party, can do something about?
Well, first of all, let me go back again and to what I mentioned in terms of my proposal. Dual citizenship and voting rights at Bomas of Kenya. It was very inclusive and broad because that aspect you mentioned about representation, it was included there, but we said that can be progressive, progressively infused into the legislation. First of all, what we had proposed was in the first election that the diaspora participate, they should just vote for the president. And then as we progress on, maybe in the next election, we can have diaspora vote for not only the president, but even vote for a governor or a member of parliament.
But so do you support
representation? Yes, I do.
Do you think the parties should nominate at least some people from the diaspora as their representatives in these coming elections?
I would support that idea, but now again, that idea was not infused or embedded in this new constitution.
But it's not. It's just silent. That thing is silent. It doesn't say no or yes. It's just silent there.
Correct. I will support that. Yeah, I will support that. I will support any form of representation for the diaspora. Diaspora needs to be represented not only through our office, but in the legislative house, which is parliament, because they have a lot of concerns.
Thank you very much, John.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Viewers, we've been talking to Mr. John Maina. John Maina is the advisor on diaspora issues in the office of the Prime Minister in Kenya. He gave us a courtesy call, and as you've heard from him, there's still issues, many issues that the diaspora is concerned about, especially when it comes to the new constitution and the clause on dual citizenship. That is it for me. My name is Chris Omaldo once again, and we'll see you in our next installment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and we look forward to more from you next week. The Diaspora Voice team offers you an opportunity to be on the show. All you have to do is write to us on diasporavoice@standardmedia.co.ke. That's diasporavoice@standardmedia.co.ke, and we will get back to you on how you can participate on this show. You can also participate by joining the discussion on Twitter and on Facebook using the details on your screen. That's all we have for you for now. Thank you for watching. From me, Sophia Wanuna, and the team, it is Kwaheri till next week.